On a stormy Valentine's night in 2000, a 9-year-old girl quietly left her home in the middle of the night. Several motorists spotted her walking alone along a dark, rainy highway until she suddenly ran into the woods and disappeared without a trace. Asha Jaquila Degree was a 9-year-old girl living with her family in Shelby, North Carolina, a quiet, rural town in Cleveland County. She lived on Oak Crest Drive, a street nestled in a modest neighborhood, where most families knew each other and life moved at a steady, predictable pace. Asha was the younger child of Harold and Aquila Degree and shared a close bond with her older brother, O'Brien. The Degree household was grounded in discipline, structure, and faith, with both parents working and keeping close watch over their children's lives. At the time of her disappearance, Asha was a 4th grade student at Falston Elementary School. Known for being shy and well-behaved, she had no history of disciplinary issues or emotional problems. Teachers described her as respectful and attentive, and her academic performance reflected consistency and effort. She played on her school's basketball team and attended church regularly with her family. Her life was carefully structured, and her parents were intentional about keeping their children safe from external influences, including limiting access to television and the internet. On Sunday, February 13, 2000, the Degree family followed their usual weekend routine. They attended church that morning, returned home, and later visited relatives to celebrate Valentine's Day. That night, Shelby, North Carolina, was hit by a storm that caused a temporary power outage. Despite the weather, the family eventually settled in for the evening. Asha and her older brother O'Brien shared a bedroom. The last confirmed sighting of Asha occurred around 2:30 a.m. when her father, Harold Degree, checked on both children and saw her sleeping in her bed. Sometime between 2:30 and 3:15 a.m., Asha quietly left the house. She had packed a backpack with personal belongings, though the specific items she chose to take were not immediately known. There were no signs of forced entry at the home, and nothing in the house indicated a struggle or any kind of break-in. Asha's departure was silent and deliberate. She left behind no note and did not tell anyone she was going. When the family woke up around 6:30 a.m. on the morning of February 14th, they immediately noticed Asha was missing. Her absence triggered panic and confusion. A search of the house and nearby areas yielded no sign of her. Realizing the severity of the situation, the Degrees contacted local authorities, launching what would become a massive investigation. Given Asha's quiet nature and the close supervision she had always been under, the family could not comprehend why she would leave on her own. Abduction was their first fear, as nothing in Asha's behavior or background made this event seem like a runaway. The hours between when she was last seen and when she was discovered missing would mark the beginning of a mystery that remains unsolved decades later. Between 3:30 and 4:15 a.m. on February 14, 2000, multiple motorists reported seeing a young girl walking along North Carolina Highway 18. This location was over a mile from Asha Degree's home. The girl, later confirmed to be Asha, was walking southbound in the direction of Falston. Despite the early morning hour, darkness, and rain, the sightings placed her firmly on the roadside, providing a crucial timeline update and confirming that she had left her home voluntarily and was alive at least an hour after her family last saw her. The stretch of Highway 18 where Asha was seen is rural and poorly lit. There are no sidewalks or consistent streetlights in the area, making it a hazardous route for anyone, especially a 9-year-old child, traveling alone in inclement weather. The conditions that night were cold and wet, adding to the danger. Despite this, Asha continued walking with determination, suggesting she may have had a specific destination or meeting place in mind. One of the witnesses, a truck driver, turned his vehicle around after seeing her and attempted to check on her well-being. As he approached, Asha abruptly ran into the woods, avoiding contact. This behavior indicates she was likely trying to avoid being recognized or stopped. These independent accounts were the last known confirmed sightings of Asha Degree. They remain essential pieces of evidence in understanding her final known movements and raise critical questions about why she was out, walking alone in such dangerous conditions. On February 15th, 2000, one day after Asha Degree disappeared, a business owner made a quiet discovery that would soon become a critical piece of the investigation. The owner of Turner's Upholstery, located along the same stretch of North Carolina Highway 18 where Asha was last seen, found several curious items inside a shed on their property. Among them were candy wrappers, a pencil, and a Mickey Mouse hair bow. Although these may have seemed insignificant at first, they would later be linked directly to Asha. At the time, the connection was not immediately made. The business owner did not report the items to law enforcement until February 17th, 2 days after the discovery and 3 days after Asha vanished. This delay added difficulty to an already urgent and time-sensitive case. The location of the shed, set well back from the highway, prompted investigators to question how and why Asha's belongings ended up there. Did she seek shelter from the storm on her own? Or was she led there by someone? One especially troubling piece of evidence emerged from the shed: a photograph of an unidentified young girl. Asha's family did not recognize the girl, nor did staff at her school. The photo added an unsettling new layer to the investigation. Investigators began to consider whether Asha believed she was going to meet this person, or if the image belonged to someone else entirely, perhaps even someone involved in her disappearance. The shed became the first physical location tied to Asha after she left home. In August 2001, 18 months after Asha Degree disappeared, a major discovery was made that re-energized the investigation. While digging an access road for a new home in Burke County, a construction worker unearthed a black and beige backpack buried in the ground. It had been carefully double-wrapped in black plastic bags and buried less than 50 yards off North Carolina Highway 18, the same road Asha had been seen walking along before she vanished. Written on the bag were her name and telephone number, confirming beyond doubt that it belonged to her. The location of the discovery, nearly 30 miles from her home in Shelby, was startling. Inside the backpack were 2 items that did not belong to Asha: a New Kids on the Block t-shirt and a copy of McElligot's Pool by Dr. Seuss. Her family did not recognize either item. At the time, investigators chose not to release the contents of the bag to the public. It wasn't until October 2018, 17 years later, that the details became public knowledge. The book itself raised additional questions. It was eventually traced to the Falston Elementary School library, where Asha was a student, though it was unclear who had checked it out. School records no longer existed to confirm whether Asha had borrowed it or if it came from someone else connected to the case. The deliberate concealment of the backpack, the distance from her last known location, and the inclusion of items that weren't hers led some investigators to consider a deeply unsettling possibility. The site may have served as a kind of trophy stash, evidence that whoever buried the backpack had a personal or psychological attachment to the crime and possibly intended to return to the site in the future. The central question in Asha Degree's case remains: why did she leave home that night? For a sheltered 9-year-old girl with no history of misbehavior, her decision to walk alone into the stormy night is both shocking and puzzling. Investigators and the public alike have wrestled with theories, but none offer complete answers. One possibility is that Asha was groomed. Despite having no internet access at home and limited outside exposure, she could have been manipulated by someone within her small circle, perhaps a figure from school, basketball, or church. Her family was careful and protective, but someone familiar might have gained her trust over time, convincing her to leave voluntarily. The route she took and her apparent determination suggest she believed she was going to meet someone. The photograph found in the shed, depicting an unknown girl not recognized by Asha's family or school, raised even more questions. Was this the person Asha thought she was meeting? Or did the image belong to someone else involved in her disappearance? The discovery of her backpack 30 miles away, along the same highway she was last seen walking, points to a possible offender who frequently used NC-18. The deliberate concealment of her belongings and the presence of unrelated items strengthen the idea of premeditation. It suggests someone who knew the area well, potentially a local with consistent access to children, perhaps through extracurricular activities or community roles. Despite years of investigation, these pieces remain unconnected. Each clue adds depth, but also uncertainty, feeding into a complex web of possibilities. Asha's case remains unsolved, suspended between disturbing theories and a deep longing for resolution. In the years following Asha Degree's disappearance, multiple prison inmates have come forward claiming knowledge or involvement in the case. While each tip brought temporary hope, none led to a breakthrough, and all ultimately proved fruitless. In 2004, a prisoner tipped off police to a location in Lawndale, South Carolina. Investigators dug at the site, which was about 6 miles from Asha's home. They uncovered bones and a pair of khaki trousers. However, the bones were determined to be from an animal, and no connection to Asha was ever established. The lead went cold. In 2010, another inmate claimed involvement in Asha's case. Despite initial interest, his story yielded no credible evidence, and investigators reached another dead end. Then, in 2020, a third inmate, Marcus Mellon, sent a letter to a local newspaper. He alleged he knew how Asha was killed and where her body could be found. This prompted a fresh investigation and renewed attention from law enforcement. However, once again, nothing verifiable came from the tip. These repeated false leads have caused understandable frustration for investigators and deep emotional strain for the Degree family. The recurring pattern has raised concerns that some inmates may be seeking attention, bargaining for reduced sentences, or inserting themselves into high-profile cases without genuine knowledge. Commentators and podcast hosts have called for greater media responsibility when covering unverified prison confessions. While every lead deserves to be evaluated, publicizing them prematurely can create false hope and distract from credible investigative efforts. Over 2 decades have passed since Asha Degree vanished into the dark, rainy night. Today she would be 32 years old. Despite the time that has elapsed, her case remains unsolved, and the pain of her disappearance continues to shape the lives of those closest to her. Her parents, Harold and Aquila Degree, have never stopped hoping for answers. Aquila has remained steadfast in her belief that her daughter is still alive. For the Degree family, Valentine's Day is no longer just their wedding anniversary. It is also a stark and painful reminder of the day their daughter disappeared. In 2015, a renewed effort was launched. The FBI, the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation, and the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office came together for a full reinvestigation. This collaboration brought the FBI's Child Abduction Rapid Deployment Team into the case. Hundreds of new leads were generated, though no resolution followed. Still, the investigation remains open and active, with a dedicated tip line encouraging anyone with information to come forward. Asha's story continues to resonate, not only with her family, but with the wider community. From social media pages to national missing person databases like Uncovered, people have worked tirelessly to ensure her case is not forgotten. As this section closes, viewers are reminded, if they know anything, no matter how small, they should contact the FBI or the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office. One tip could finally bring answers to a family that has waited far too long.